Dear friends, welcome back to Godlywood Studio. Today we'll be continuing our talk with Sister Jayanti, the European Director of Brahmakumaris, on the amazing Dadi Janki ji. Dadi's ability to interpret deep spiritual secrets in a very assimilable form so that even common man can imbibe it. This ability was amazing. And today we will be discussing on this amazing ability to share the wisdom with the world. We will be discussing about those gems of wisdom which Dadi loved to share with the world. And joining us, as usual, is Sister Jayanti.
Om
Welcome,
Shanti.
Dadi. Om Shanti. This episode, I thought we will talk about those wonderful gems of wisdom which Dadi repeated at every occasion. There were certain keywords which Dadi wanted everyone to, kind of stamp into their minds, that don't forget this ever. The very first thing I remember is she said, one, the one. At that moment, it really felt that she only had connection with one. Who is the one? How should we and why should we connect to him?
The one that she's referring to is the one who's up above and who's remembered in all the different traditions. God, Bhagwan, Ishwar, Allah, whatever name you may use, but we're talking about the Supreme. And so she refers to the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Being, Shiv Baba. We use this very warm term of affection, Shiv Baba. So Shiva, the benefactor, the being of light, the source of all attributes, she knows that whatever it is that a human being needs can come from that one. And yet
it is Shiv Baba, she constantly calls Baba, Baba, Baba.
Right.
Yes.
Sometimes she uses the word Baba for Brahma Baba, because she lived with Brahma Baba the whole of her life. And she uses this term for Brahma Baba when she's talking about stories. I saw Baba, I went with Baba, Baba told me this, Baba told me that. So then she's talking about Brahma Baba also. But generally, when it's that finger, and of course when she's talking about God, it's that one, the incorporeal, non-physical, non-visible being, the parent of all. What happens is that human beings get distracted and we get engaged with all the people here on the horizontal plane. We forget about the vertical plane. And even if there have been prophets and messengers and people who've established religions, again, they're here on the human level, higher than the normal human beings, but definitely still with a physical form. They have a mother, a father, and so on and so on. And yet, people either get trapped with ordinary mortals, or they get trapped by these religious founders, or they get trapped by the gurus of today. And Dadi knows that if you want liberation, if you want salvation, if you want to have spiritual power to help you in your life here and now, never mind liberation and salvation later, but here and now, if I want help, it comes to me from God. And so her purpose in life was to connect human souls with the Supreme Soul.
How is it that the invisible was so visible to her? When we listen to her, it feels like she's talking to someone very close, and she's talking to the invisible, and which many people over the ages have tried and failed and met very little success. How did a woman from India without a big spiritual background talk to God like that?
You'd remember that you'd asked me about her search for God, and I'd mentioned how she'd gone on pilgrimages, and she had said to her father to take me north, south, east and west, every place. And she'd talk to the gurus there, and she'd ask them, what is your experience of God? And they were blank, they were silent. They couldn't say anything. And so from that she understood that scriptures or even amazing gurus can't show you who is God because they don't know. And so then when she met Brahma Baba and she saw that light that was shining in him, she saw him as God's instrument. And then the teachings that came through Brahma Baba were the foundation for her life. And so that knowledge is what she was sharing with others. And so on the basis of that knowledge, her experience of God was a very personal one. my mother, my father, my friend,
Yes.
my beloved, my teacher, my guide. She really would play. She would play with the experience of each one of these relationships.
Yes, she actually felt those emotions as if it was a physical person. I think personally, for anyone on search of God, this is going to be the biggest thing, because when we need someone to connect, we usually look for human beings who are good and virtuous, and which is very hard to find nowadays. And Dadi established all these relationships and felt an emotional connection on the very same plane where a normal person connects to another person. How did she manage to do this?
Through her practice of introversion and silence and soul consciousness. Because when I'm in physical consciousness, temporary consciousness, limited consciousness, my connections are here. But when I move into spiritual consciousness, then my connection is with the One. And so the more I maintain my spiritual identity as a soul, as that inner being of light, then in that awareness, it's very easy to feel God's presence, the connection with God, the signals that God wants to give me, the love, the power that God wants to give me. So her practice was constant from early morning hours through till the night. Because soul consciousness is something you do inside. It's nothing that you do externally. So externally you can be walking, you can be talking, you can be with people, you can be cooking, whatever it is. But her practice of soul consciousness and keeping God as her companion was just constant.
And that was the reason why people were drawn towards her, right? Because when you look someone as a woman or a man, they are also in that conscious, and you are contributing to that thing only. But when you look at someone as a soul, as you said, then the outside things just melt away, and there's a connection.
They would feel that they were in the presence of the divine, and they would feel that coming in front of Dadi's drishti was able to help them connect with the divine also. And so yes, this is why multi-thousands were wanting to be with her, learn from her.
Dadi always said, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. She explained it also, and she said, I want you to repeat with me. Why Om Shanti and why 3 times?
The first Om Shanti is, who am I? The second Om Shanti is, who do I belong to? The third Om Shanti is, what do I need to do now? And so in 3 Om Shantis, she encapsulated all the ideas of spirituality. She was giving answers to the questions that people have had through millennia. And so that's a summary of 3 Om Shantis.
And that was the result of the special churning which you were mentioned, right? She said things which even didn't come out of Brahma Baba's mouths. I mean, basically it was the knowledge, but she gave it another dimension. She personalized it in a way. So,
I'll give you an example. A journalist in Singapore asked her many years ago, Dadi, have you ever been jealous of anyone? And she thought about it and said, no, I don't think I've ever been jealous, because I've always had more than what I needed, more than what I wanted. Then the next question was, Dadi, have other people been jealous of you? And she smiled and said, yes. And then the journalist said, how did you deal with it? And she said, I realized that there must still be some ego that's causing the jealousy. And if I'm even more humble, I know that when I'm truly humble, then with that humility, nobody picks up any sort of ego from me, then they can't be jealous. They'll just be inspired. And then when she was sharing this story with us, then she asked us a question, where does jealousy come from? And we were thinking, and she said, it comes from laziness. And it was a surprise to me. I'd never connected.
Really? How can you connect both of these things?
Exactly. So then she explained, if I'm willing to do the work at the time that I need to do the work, then I get the fruits, I get the results. And I don't need to be jealous of anyone. If at the time of doing the work, I'm a bit lazy and I don't do the work,
You
then
don't get
I
a-
see
you
the
don't get the
results. I don't get the
Yes.
fruits, and I'm looking at the fruits that somebody else is getting, and then I say, why can't I have it? But I didn't do the work that was needed. An analogy for that, in October time, when it's autumn in England, you have to dig your garden and you have to plant the bulbs for spring. And I look out of my garden and I see my next door neighbor working hard and digging away. And I think, well, okay, I can't be bothered to do that now. Maybe I should, but later. And of course, you postpone and it never happens. Spring comes and I look out of my window and I see next door garden blooming with gorgeous flowers. And I see my garden and there's nothing. And I get jealous. And I forget that when it was time to do the work, I wasn't ready to do the work. And it's a very external example, but it gives an indication.
But it's so deep. It's so deep, and nobody would ever think about laziness and it causing jealousy later. I think this is an amazing example of what you said. Her power to churn the knowledge and bring the butter out of it.
She looked like a very ordinary, very simple housewife, but her mind was incredible. She was a real philosopher, and not just abstract words, but she found what it is she was looking for within her reflections and her connection with God, and she would then experiment with that idea, and then she would share it. So it was never that you do as I tell you to do. It was always, I don't need to say anything. You watch what I'm doing and you learn from that. So it was more do what I do, which most leaders in the world today, including religious leaders, aren't practicing. But of course, Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba taught her, do it first and speak about it later. And she would never ever take credit that it's me that thought about this or I churned this. Never. She would say, I learned it from Baba. I learned it from Baba. So it was that Baba and also this Baba.
Taking herself out of the equation always.
That's right.
She never had to pose as something else, right? She was so genuineness and authenticity in its 100%.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a big dignitary who came to visit Dadi when she was in one of the centers of Kerala. She had gone there for a mega program. He went to see her to the center, and the sisters in the center told him, wait here, Dadi will come. He had 2 minutes to wait. He was just going through the pictures, and he just went towards the kitchen side, and he said, I saw something amazing. I saw a small woman who was just finishing cutting the vegetables and cleaning her hands and coming to receive me. And it was Dadi Janki ji. And I thought she was in the kitchen with the mothers cutting vegetables. And he asked her, Dadi, what were you doing? So I said, I had time, so I thought I will help the mothers in the kitchen. Why should I sit in a chair as the head of the institution? I mean, what is it? She never considered herself as the head or what is self-respect for her? This is a different kind of self-respect which we are seeing here.
Her self-respect was based on her own inner core values and following those values in her life. And so she had a dignity that nobody could take away from her. This is why later on, of course, it was very different, but early days in London, nobody saw her as the head of anything. And it is exactly as you're sharing in the story. People would come to the center and they'd see a couple of teachers, a couple of sisters, and then they'd meet Dadi and they would be very surprised because her appearance was so simple. But then when she'd begin to give them drishti or she'd begin to speak, then of course
they understand this is someone different.
They knew who she is. And so she never had to announce, I am this. But her very being was then able to give the introduction to others of who she is, God's instrument. And she never ever said, I'm a leader, I'm the chief. God's instrument, that's it.
I think she even, wherever she had to write her name or signature. I have heard she just wrote BK Janki, not even Dadi Janki.
No. She used to say to us in the early days, "Don't treat me like a daddy, I'm not a daddy." And we would say, "Daddy, for us, you are a daddy."
She openly used to say that in stage,
Yeah.
on
That's
stage,
right.
where all
Yeah.
the dadis come together. I've heard her saying, she's a dadi, I'm not a dadi.
And yes, she would always sign BK Janki, that's it, nothing more.
Yes. Didi, I think the world needs to sit and listen to this and understand this, because majority of your problem would vanish if you just understand the essence of what you are explaining right now. The way Dadi carried herself, there was self-respect to the highest extent, but she never had to show anything. There was nothing showy.
When there's greatness in an individual, together with that greatness there is humility. I've seen this in people like Mother Teresa, I've seen it in Nelson Mandela, different people. But Dadi and many of the other Dadis, Dadi Prakash Mani also, and Dadi Janki, many of them, they make themselves so available to people. Anybody can say, "Dadi, I want to speak to you," and that's it. We'll try and make sure that they do speak to Dadi. Dadi Kumarka, Dadi Prakash Mani used to sit in the courtyard and say, "Whoever comes, let them come and meet me." So no restrictions of any type. This is the greatness of these souls, that they express it through their humility.
And that is real power also, right, Didi?
Yeah.
Because when you're not powerful, then you need to show something.
Yeah.
But when you're really powerful, you doesn't need to show, because what there is, there is.
That's right.
And this is what we heard enough about grounded personalities, and you don't have to show anything to the world. Another thing which Dadi always said, in Hindi it would be, "Main kaun, mera kaun." Who am I and who do I belong to? Why did she think that this is so important that people to learn?
Without knowing myself and my own spiritual identity, I'll always be trapped by ego, anger, attachment, all of these negative forces. As soon as I realize who I truly am, I'm in that awareness of being the spirit. I'm in touch with peace and truth and love and purity and joy. In physical consciousness, it's the 5 vices, lust, anger, In spiritual consciousness, I'm connected with the One and I have those attributes. The second, who belongs to me, who I belong to. If I'm saying everyone here is mine, or they belong to me, I belong to them, I'm going to be trapped in 1,000 different ways, with attachment, with greed, with ego, all sorts of things. If I belong to one, and that one belongs to me, there's power, there's purity, there's freedom from all these negative forces. So if there's a message that Dadi wishes to leave the world, I think it's these 2 things. And of course the third is, what must I do? Mujhe kya karna hai? So these 3 Om Shantis, I think that in a way that summarizes everything about her life.
And as you were talking, Didi, I was thinking about the emotional problem which especially youth in the world is going through. Looking for something in relationships and not finding it there, and then an unbelievable rate of heartbreaks all around the world. We have always thought, is it necessary this much of a searching for something? And I think Dadi, when she said these words, was teaching the world that, you see, this is the kind of relationship you should establish first, so that you can save yourself from 1,000 heartbreaks, as you said.
And Dadi would say to them, what's your relationship with yourself?
Oh,
That would be the first step. Have I ever had an inner dialogue with myself? Have I been able to know myself? And if I can have a good relationship of respect for myself, then I can even have a relationship with the divine. Without that, I can't connect. But of course, we forget about ourselves, we forget about God, and all we're interested in is people around us. So yes, she's helped so many get their priorities sorted out. And once you do that, then you can get your life sorted out, and hopefully the world sorted out too.
Yes. She was a very simple woman, as you said. She didn't need much. You said that already. One of her famous words, her saying was, white dress, pocket empty, still ruler of the world. How can you have your pocket empty and still be the ruler of the world?
She used to use the word Befikr Badshah, the carefree emperor. And she wasn't talking so much about ruling the world, but she was talking more about ruling the self.
Okay.
The self-sovereign, the master of the self, Raj Yoga. And so Befikr Badshah, the carefree emperor, if I know how to rule my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, my sanskars, I can be completely carefree, I can be happy because everything is fine, and I'm with God, and God is giving me all that I need. So I'm the master of the self, the ruler of the self, but also I'm completely carefree.
But then once you become your own master, then it naturally translates that you are eligible, right? You are eligible to be on top of even though you don't have any desire.
Yeah.
I think this is what Dadi wanted to show to the world, because when you have a desire, then you are not eligible. And if you want to be eligible, then your pocket should be empty. I've heard many times she's saying, I don't have a purse.
That's right.
I don't have a bank balance. I don't have a car. When I want to go somewhere, these people help me. They come up with the car.
Exactly.
And how can one detach herself in such a way that this is not mine?
Her practice of just being centered, focused, and connecting with God gave her everything she needed. It gave her the power to overcome Prakriti, her own illness of the body. And she went through many illnesses.
Yes, that is one thing which I had in my mind, which I wanted to ask you. I have heard she went through innumerable, diseases of the body. I don't know the names. I remember once reading something on that, but it was such a lot of very severe physical illnesses.
Because I knew her for so long, I knew all those stories, and of course, I saw her nearly leave at least 6 different times.
Oh my God.
But her pure thought of just God's love and serving God and letting the whole of humanity know who is God, that was her motivation that kept her going. And her practice of detachment from the body, so that she became the master of her own body. And so one moment she's not well, next moment she's meeting people, next moment she's on the stage. Afterwards she'll again come back into a room and say, yes, I think the body's telling me I need to rest. But when she's on the stage, when she's serving people, she's in prime form. And so that it was these two things, detachment from her own skin, and secondly, God's love that gave her the power to serve in an unlimited way.
That is the reason why she has been given this amazing title by Brahma Baba, that she is Janak Videhi. I mean, she is the bodiless one, which usually is something mentioned in the scriptures.
Right.
And this is what she practiced. When you are in pain, you detach from the body, which is something unheard of. When you have a small prick in your legs, you cannot meditate. I have experienced that myself, and she could cross over severe disabilities. I think this is an amazing treasure which you are giving right now. To me, I think this will be my biggest takeaway from any interviews I have done till now, that you can conquer the body, and the body is nothing, and you are everything. You, as you said, the soul. And if you have that vision, then you can, even though that is not your desire, you can conquer the whole world. You can win over the world. You can win over people, and you can make them yours and take them to a different destiny which they would have never imagined possible.
Correct.
Didi, thanks a lot for coming. And even though we don't want to end this, everything has a full stop. And, but still, whenever you feel like, please drop into Godlywood studio and share with us more treasures like this. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, that was Sister Jayanti, the European director of the Brahmakumaris, sharing her sweet memories about Dadi Janki ji, her mentor, the legendary Dadi Janki ji. Dear friends, she was a reservoir of life-changing experiences, and whenever we are in doubt, we can refer back to her life and we will never be disappointed. For the time being, we are concluding this short series, but we'll be coming back with more interesting anecdotes on Dadis and the Brahmakumaris institution in general. Till then, take care, and it's a goodbye from all of us in Godlywood Studio.